pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Just a reminder to silence your cell phones, please. We will start with the swearing in of our newly appointed counselor for Ward 1, Nathan Tyree.
Okay. I, Nathan Tyree, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution, the laws of the United States and of the state of Colorado, the municipal code and the ordinances of the city of Brush, and that I will faithfully perform all of the duties pertaining to the office of Counselor Ward 1 to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm all set up right there. All right. Welcome, Nathan.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, we'll start with roll call.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes, here.
Councilor Guerrero?
Here.
Councilor Klinkhammer?
Here.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Here.
Councilor Spradlin? Councilor Councilor Tyree?
Here.
All right, next we've got the approval of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to read it. Are there any corrections or revisions? Or additions? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor Spradlin?
Yes.
Councilor Guerrero?
Yes.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Councilor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Councilor Tyree?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. Next we have visitors and delegations. Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled.
We have approval of minutes.
The minutes.
Oh, it's because it's on there twice. Never mind. Okay, that was for the agenda. Well, I said minutes. I think I said minutes. So now we should probably approve the agenda because I was doing the minutes. So. Does anybody have any additions or corrections for the agenda? I would look for a motion to approve.
Second.
And we'll call vote.
Councilor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin?
Yes.
Councilor Guerrero?
Yes.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Councilor Tyree?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. Okay, now we have citizen comments. Is anyone here to speak on anything besides the watershed protection district? Okay. Then we will move on. So we're going to have a public hearing continued from our February 28th meeting on ordinance number 894-22, amending the Brush Municipal Code by adopting Chapter 13, Article 7, the watershed protection. So for right now, I will open the public hearing and look for a staff report from Monty.
Okay, before I do the staff report, I just wanted to make sure that Dan Krob could hear us pretty well.
Yeah, I can hear you, Monty.
Okay, very good. So the staff report, we already had the two other meetings in discussing the ordinance, but I did have a few updates for the city council. First one is that I did meet with the last of the 3 property owners that did not receive their certified letters. That was the letter inviting to the open house meeting that we held. We also did receive one additional letter from an attorney, which that went to our city attorney. And then we did receive, I believe it was this morning or maybe late last week, an email of support and then a letter of support. And if the council would like, we could read those, or if not, you have copies of those. So your choice if we have the city clerk read those 2 support letters.
Do you guys want to have them read? I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay.
So the first one is from Jamie Ledbetter. And it says, I am offering this letter of support to the Brush City Council to vote in favor of passing the Watershed Protection Plan ordinance. In addition to the municipality's ability to authorize and implement the watershed protection stated by Colorado Revised Statute, Title 31, Article 15, Section 707 at subsection B, the quality of this water is a rare commodity that should be protected as a most vital resource for its citizens' health and well-being. This water should be a viable resource available 50 years from now. Should the Brush City Council pass this ordinance, going forward, I'll mention several items for consideration. Number 1, a working point of contact system of communication between landowners, Morton County, Morton Quality Water, state and local government entities. My observation of the February 23rd, 2022 informational meeting is that there was a communication disconnect leading to information misinterpretations and contentious discussions. Kudos to the Brush City Administrator and personnel for the extra attempts to contact all interested parties. Mutual reciprocity would avoid misunderstandings. Until I did some research, I was not aware of the 2009 Morgan County Quality Source Water Protection Plan. That is the sort of reciprocal communication that would have been handy for all to know while wading through this process. I believe the adjacent landowners should be involved in the communication process. I understand the land is their livelihood, and I believe they will be an honest, proactive sounding board. Number 2, continual testing the brush water well source, and depending on available funding, testing offset water sources, possibly biannual testing or as needed after a special event such as wildfire or flooding. Again, actually sharing data between parties to prevent a problem before it is too late. In the event of any future industrial activity coming into the area, I would suggest geological monitoring to assess groundwater movement or quality. Thank you for your time and consideration. Jamie Ledbetter, Brush Water Advisory Board. And then the second one is from Dan Scalise. It says, to Mayor Dana Sherman and Brush City Council members from Dan Scalise, former mayor of Brush, regarding watershed protection. Unfortunately, I have a prior commitment and am unable to attend this city council meeting. I would like to state for the record that I am 100% in favor of the watershed protection plan, a plan that protects the city's water for current needs and our future growth. I am in hopes that the needs of our city would be one of the most important issues facing us today, and this protection plan passes with no resistance. Sincerely, Dan Scalise.
Thank you. Oh, Kevin's trying to get on.
How does it call myself? Wow. Let's see here.
Just put him on speaker. Okay, sorry.
He was asking for the Go Meeting link. Oh,
Can you put them on your speakerphone?
yeah.
Is this one?
I don't know offhand, we're not dating, you know. 970 847 5885.
We have a counselor missing, so he's trying to call in.
Kevin? Are you there? Hi, how are you? Good. I'm good. Now I gotta see if we still have Dan on the line. Dan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, very good.
Hold for a second, sounds like.
Okay. I'm just gonna put you on speakerphone, Kevin. And that'll be a quick solution.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi, Kevin.
Kevin, just to kind of do a real quick recap, we just were filling in the council on all of the property owners now have been contacted and visited with in regards to the Watershed Protection District. And then Loranda had just read 2 support letters for that district. And now we're just going to continue on with staff report. So the next item.
Cool, thank you all.
Yep. The next item is the Morton County Quality Water. They had asked if we could give them a couple more weeks of time so that they could meet with their entire board. So that has occurred now, and our final comments are back from them, and we just received those on Friday. So we didn't have time to vet those items, and also along with the letter from the one attorney that was forwarded to me this morning. So those two things, along with, we have a couple corrections on the legal description. That's gonna require us to not approve this ordinance once you guys close this meeting or this hearing. And we will have to revise the ordinance based upon those comments, and then we will republish those after we come back to the city council for a first reading. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's a quick update there. And part of that is we need a little more time with our water attorneys. We have a water attorney and a city attorney, and we're planning for a call later this week to start running through those different comments that we received. And the other thing that we did is we did a little bit more homework on some of the questions that came up from the last meeting. And so I'm gonna go over those questions, and these are the ones that Rick had documented. And then again tonight, when you open it up for the citizens to speak in regards to this, we'll have Rick do the same thing, write down the questions or concerns, and we'll try to address those. So these are from the last meeting from the audience, some of the questions that came up or concerns. First one is, do permits come to the county first and then referred back to the city of Brush, or vice versa? And the response to that is the watershed permits would go to the city. Right now we have it either myself or the Public Works Director. And then both the city and county would continue to communicate with referrals as we've done in the past. We always do referrals with the county, and they do the same thing with us whenever there's an annexation or if there's any type of special use permits. We send those back and forth to the county and to the city. Anything what's typically within 3 miles of the city of Brush, we've always done that. So we anticipate that going the same exact way as we've done in the past. And another question was, would this ordinance be policed by the county? And the answer is, it's not gonna be policed by the county, but we're gonna keep that open communication so both the county and the city are tracking if anything requires a permit or not. The other question was, how can landowners be assured that their land values would not be compromised? We don't believe that the ordinance and permitting system will devalue the land, but we can't say for sure. What we can say is there's already all these other regulations that are out there that are much, much more stringent than the city's watershed ordinance. This is very specific to water quality, and we don't believe it's going to, but no one can really tell for sure. Could specific legal language be targeted to protection of the water and not towards land use? Don't have an answer for that one, but we are meeting with the city attorney and water attorney later this week, and we'll discuss that one. Another question was, where do landowners go to test water quality? And the best recommendations we could come up with is Northeast Colorado Health Department. They offer some services for water quality testing. There's also private labs. If anyone had wells in the area that we're discussing now, and if there might be some interest in the city or quality water, we might even be able to do some testing as well if there is a request for that, just depending on if there was a benefit for us as well, which the more data out in that area in regards to water, the better. There's also discussions about Morgan County having the right to farm. It's the Right to Farm Act. I'm not sure if it's a resolution or ordinance of the counties, but the Right to Farm, that's more in regards to nuisances. It's not really a water quality act. That one was started off with the state of Colorado years ago, and a lot of counties did adopt it, but it's mostly towards nuisances. The next question was, does the ordinance seems to be restrictive for the landowners in regards to land use? Has the city of Brush spoken to the landowners to understand the benefits of this ordinance from their viewpoint? We have had, this is the third meeting now, and so we've heard that the last two meetings, the concerns there. We've also had some individual meetings with those who've come into the city hall to visit as well. And then the last one was, who is the boss for this ordinance, the state or the city of Brush? And the state law allows for the ordinance to be put in place, but it is up to the city to manage the permitting program. So those are the questions that came up. And the only other one that we had put a little more time into was there's a lot of discussions about best management practices. And don't have the perfect answer, but I looked at a lot of different, not a lot, but a handful of other watershed protection ordinances. That language is consistent in all of those. But then I also decided to look at a few local land use regulations here in the county, and they also talk about best management practices in the county. If you go to CAFO regulations, state of Colorado, they also have the same thing, look at best management practices for CAFOs. So it seems to be pretty consistent language anywhere you go, just best management practices. And I think ours was mostly related to best management practices, information we get from CSU or the NRCS is what we've talked about. And the reason I looked at a few other ordinances around the state was because someone had made a comment in regards to ours seems to be a lot heavier than others. Other ones a little bit smaller, but ours is about the same as everyone else's. And it's amazing, you look at them, almost all the same verbiage throughout most of them as well. So that is all of the staff report that we have at this time. Like I mentioned, we're gonna be meeting with the water engineers, attorneys later this week, and our city attorney. And if we need our engineers, we can go to them asking more specific details. But we did get the red line copy from Quality Water, and that's where we need that little additional time to make some adjustments to our document. Not necessarily every single red line are we going to incorporate in, but some had a little bit of value to them, we thought. And there's a couple that it didn't seem like they made a difference one way or another. But we'll bring that to the city council once we get to the first reading of the revised ordinance. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. So now we will have public testimony. Members of the public have the opportunity to make statements either in support of or in opposition to the ordinance. Anyone addressing council must first come to the podium and please state your name and address before making your comments. Each party giving testimony will be given one opportunity to speak and must direct all questions regarding the application to the mayor. Do we have anyone here to make public testimony?
My name is Jeff Cook. I live at 29152 County Road 0.5 in Brush, Colorado. I own land to the north, and I have land that's further than the 5-mile radius. My biggest concern is if you come in a year or two and you extend this 5-mile radius, then I am in it. So that's why I'm here, one reason. Another reason is I don't think you're being fair to the landowners. I have a little history of the Brush well field. I don't know what year it was, and my dad told me that Max Peterson owned the pasture land outside of the well fields plus the well fields, and the city came to him and wanted to buy 2 sections or whatever you guys have. And he said it's not for sale. So they forced condemnment and forced him to sell. So that's how you guys got your land in the first place. You took. And people get tired of people taking. Another thing I have problems with, you don't think it's going to influence our land values. Well, why don't you put a guarantee in that contract and say if it does, you're going to pay the difference? Nobody's given us a solid answer on that deal. And that's one of the biggest things. Another thing is, it doesn't matter who comes in, whether it's a pipeline, a power line, oil leases, they all pay us to use and control our land. And you guys want it for nothing. I don't think that's fair. I think there should be some compensation. If you're going to take something, you should pay for it. And I guess that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know anything about condemning anyone's land. Never heard of that before. But that's been a lot of years ago too, so, but I've never seen anything in regards to that.
What about the radius?
The radius of state law is 5 miles. We can't exceed that, 5 miles. And then in regards to the values of property, I can't really address that.
Anybody else?
My name's Mike Cook. I own land adjacent to the watershed project, along with my brother Jeff, who just spoke. I guess my concern is, you state that you have a 5-mile radius within the watershed agreement. I believe that XL Energy would be in that 5-mile radius. Would you agree there?
The radius is only south of the well field, upstream of it, and that area wouldn't fall within that radius,
It's which way?
south of the well fields. Yeah, if you look at the map over there, it can only be in that area. It's not a radius all the way around, just south of the well field.
Well, that doesn't seem fair to me, that you don't include some of the big property owners and the big companies like that. XL Energy, the tomato plant, you know, there's a lot of pollution, I believe, from the XL Energy property. The tomato plant is also hauling their tomatoes and dumping them on the land that they own south of Jeff Albert's place there. Now, that to me is a concern also. I would think that would be something that should be controlled. It's not within your 5-mile radius, but, I mean, there's a lot of fertilizer, chemicals going into the ground from that source, so.
So I think some of the confusion, we can only protect 5 miles upstream. And the way that water flows is basically what that.
Who knows how the water controls, or which way the water is flowing?
The water
Water
knows
engineers
that.
that did the map for us, they engineered all the way the water flows, and that's how it was based on, was the engineering of the.
Okay, and you're comfortable with that?
Pay them a lot of money to be right.
Okay, well, what about the people that are outside that, I mean, that are below that, your watershed? What about our wells? Who's protecting that?
Well, we can't because it's too
It's
far
outside
out.
of our
Who-
5
What's the
miles.
difference?
Attorney's trying to speak.
I think Dan's,
Yes.
The authorizing statute, I'm sorry, just for the record, my name is Dan Crum, I'm the city attorney. I do appreciate your concern. The authorizing statute only allows us to control upstream 5 miles. And so we have to rely on the expertise of our engineers to establish kind of the flow of that stream and all that. We certainly don't want any water polluted upstream, downstream, anywhere. But that's simply just outside of our jurisdiction. So I think that's why it's not included in this.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Citizen.
Hello, Rick Bain, 353 Howell Avenue, Brush, Colorado. I'm here tonight because I think this issue is very important to the city of Brush. Brush has enjoyed very good water for a very long time. It's unusual to have a water source that doesn't require a water treatment facility to take it to a higher quality. And I think that fact bears out that the landowners have been good stewards of the land for a very long time. I think the situation, though, that we find ourselves in is that we don't know over the years how ownership of the land or land use might change. With Colorado's ever-growing population, we know that cities are looking everywhere for water. And cities charge a lot more than the city of Brush for water, which gives them the resources to go further and further out to find it. Our water source and quality must be protected. And when I say our, I mean the city and the landowners. It could affect everyone's water. And Councilor Spradlin, I think at the first hearing, pointed that out, and I think we should all be concerned about that. I think we should all be on the same team here, because I think in the future we're going to face challenges ahead. If our water source is contaminated, it could potentially cost the residents of Brush tens of millions of dollars if we had to build a water treatment facility. One thing I would like to see, and not necessarily in the ordinance, is to make sure that we're doing a good job of monitoring our well. The technology end of that, I think one of the Water Advisory Board members asked for that. Looking at the ordinance, I like that it protects agriculture to the extent that it is grandfathered accepted agricultural practices. Any accepted practice now, by my understanding, would not require a permit. I also like that the city has waived permit fees. I think it was a good faith effort to show the interest on the city's part is only to protect our water source. Will getting a permit be inconvenient? Yeah, I think it will be. I think it's inconvenient to the landowners. I think it's inconvenient to city staff with the time they're gonna spend to do this. It is a step that we don't have to take now, but does inconvenience trump protecting a water source for 6,000 people? Not even close. The state legislature many years ago gave the ability for municipalities to protect their water source beyond their city limits in this way, and I think it has to be done in a way that does everything it can to make sure that it be drafted as precisely as it can be to consider property owners, but nevertheless, it is a measure that should be approved. I can't think of anything worse than not taking this step and having something happen to a precious resource that could have been prevented. I ask council to give this protection to our residents and ensure that our water quality remains high. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So are there any final questions from council?
Can we get a copy of the quality water red line?
Sure.
Please.
I have a question for staff. I guess landowners can answer, but I'm gonna direct it to staff. Are there private wells, within the protection district area? Okay.
Okay. So I would look for a motion to close the public hearing if there's nothing else.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Gorell. Yes. Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud. Yes. Mayor Sherman.
Yes. So, since we still have some work to do on this, we need to, we are not gonna go ahead with the second reading. So.
Well, I
don't know.
think the best thing to do is vote no, or a motion to not
Not approve.
approve this ordinance. And leave it simple like that and vote on it, and then, as soon as we get a chance to revise the ordinance, we'll bring it back for first reading and go through the process again.
And at that point, council can discuss it.
So I would look for a motion. I guess somebody could move to approve it or disapprove it, but.
I move we do not approve this.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud. Yes. Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yes.
Counselor Gorell. Yes. Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Okay. So now we have the first reading of ordinance number 89522. An ordinance of the city of Brush rezoning certain real property from planned unit development to medium density residential districts. Rick Kroglin and Dan Krob.
Thank you all for coming.
So,
Do you wanna take this, or you want me
sure,
to?
I'll take it and you can fill in whatever I miss.
Sounds good.
So it's just a formality of an ordinance is required. So we're just asking that you would approve the ordinance number 895-22, an ordinance for the city of Brush to rezone the Westwood Village subdivision from planned unit development to medium-density residential district.
Are we just introducing the ordinance tonight? We're not approving it, right?
Dan?
Well, it would be the,
So,
The
we need
first
a
reading.
counselor to, introduce this ordinance by title, and then,
Oh,
once that's done, we would look for a motion to approve on first reading.
okay. So do you have a report, Dan?
No, Rick nailed it, and, yeah, this is just formalizing and documenting the action that you took previously with the rezoning.
Okay. So I would look for a counselor to introduce by title.
I would like to introduce ordinance number 895-22, an ordinance of the city of Brush, Colorado, rezoning certain real property from planned unit development to medium-density residential district.
All right, so then I would look for a motion to approve on first reading and publish.
I move that we approve upon first reading ordinance number 895-22, an ordinance of the city of Brush, Colorado, rezoning certain real property from planned unit development, PUD, to medium-density residential district, RMD.
Second.
Any discussion?
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Counselor Garrell?
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. All right, number 8 is finance.
And I move we approve disbursements and payroll for February 28th, 2022 through March 14th, 2022, totaling $1,226,914.55.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Garrell?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. Now we have staff reports. We'll start with Rick Roglian, Assistant City Administrator.
Good evening, council. So just a few things I'll just keep you posted on. Not lots because I'm doing lots of projects right now, but just overall, we did meet Monty and Dale met with CLP, Colorado Lamb, just trying to wrap this up. I know this has been a long journey with them, and we're closer. I can't say we're close, but we're closer finally wrapping this up with the CO. I will probably be meeting with them tomorrow to kind of give the details that me and Monty talked about today to them. We had a Board of Adjustments meeting. It passed the electronic message center sign that will go in front of the secondary campus. They're replacing it with a new one, updated LED screen and everything. Be really nice. It had to go through a variance because technically it's not allowed in the code, and I don't know how it got here from the beginning. So this is before my time, but it is. They've done everything according to keep it in standing with our code. And then tomorrow we have a planning and zoning hearing at 6 p.m. and this will be a minor subdivision of the 422 Curtis and 110 Emerson. So this one we've already did a variance with them, and now they're pursuing the next step, which is a subdivision. And then the North Point parking variance was moved to go to next month because there's some documents that were still lacking. And instead of having to continue the meeting, we just decided let's push it back, give them more time. So that's really, those are my big rocks that I've been working on. Any questions? Here's your chance. Joke's saying I had enough time.
Yeah. You even had an extra minute, I think. Chief Boss.
He's saving that minute for next time.
Before you start,
Yes, sir.
Just because Kevin's online and we're gonna be talking about this and he doesn't have a copy of it, is there, Joanne, a way you could scan and send this to Kevin Stroud real quick? Email it to him?
Yeah, if I got an email address.
Yeah, that way he can get the same thing you guys are getting.
I don't know off the top
I can do that from my phone real quick.
Okay.
Did you do both copies, Lonnie?
Yeah, we'll do your report and then send it after.
Just a few things. As you know, the Ukraine is in need of personal protective equipment, and I am not a keeper of junk, so we don't have a lot, but we did donate 2 expired ballistic helmets and 1 ballistic vest, also expired, and then some medical supplies to Ukraine efforts. I've talked with Monty about this, and this is a couple months down the road, but just to give you a heads up, the Comm Center 4 years ago began a new IGA with all the municipalities, and all the cities signed it, but the county never signed it. Now the county commissioners are coming back, and they want to change that where it would incorporate billing for dispatch services. So we don't know what that looks like. Those discussions are probably a couple months out yet. But that IGA has never been signed, so we are operating on a 1997 IGA, I believe, which is severely outdated. But to also just put a caveat on all that, we do give all of our 911 surcharge funds to the 911 board, which goes into the comm center. So we are already, in a sense, giving them a fair chunk of change. I don't know the exact dollars on that. We're actually going through an audit right now with the comm board, but just to give you a heads up, that is coming, and I don't know where that discussion will go. Our second CSO begins a week from today, so we're very excited to bring her on board. So she'll be out and about with Lisa in training for about 2 months, depending on how it's going. And we have 1 offer out to an officer, currently in the background phase with him. Waiting to hear back on his psych, which I was supposed to hear today, and I still haven't heard. And then we have 1 cadet that we offered a position to for the Fall Academy. So he will actually begin working for us July 1st with the intention of sending him to the academy in the fall. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Chief.
Next we'll have Dale Corwick, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Currently, water seems to be the buzzword for me to these last couple of weeks. Working on watershed protection ordinance, specifically looking at the red lines we got last week from Morton County Quality Water, plus there's potential of another red line coming through we're going to be looking at. See what these concerns are and see how we can better strengthen the ordinance that we currently have. There were some really good suggestions in there, and then there's also there's a couple of non-starters. So, but the suggestions that were good are very good, and so I think that'll help strengthen it. Also working on our augmentation agreement with Riverside Irrigation District. It expires December 12th of 2022. Met with Riverside last Friday. We have an agreement, we just need to firm up the terms of this agreement. This is part of one of our augmentation plans. And so, but it's looking very positive that we can renew this agreement. We're just not going to do it. Riverside's very hesitant to go into another 30-year agreement, and I also concur with that. So we're probably looking at 10-year renewal type of agreements.
Just a special note on that. That agreement's very important because one of the things that we wanted to do was work with the school district to help them with the well on their site on the middle school grounds. It's a lot of grass out there, so we want to not use high-quality city water, but some well water on site to irrigate that. And before we can do anything with the school district there, we need to make sure that we have this new and approved augmentation plan, or agreement.
Agreement
For
yes.
augmentation plan.
Also, the last couple of years have been somewhat challenging for a lot of different organizations with lockdowns, COVID, all kinds of things. And as such, we are in the process of installing a monitoring well in just south of where our well field is to help monitor some of that quality out of there. It was part of an agreement that we had with, I believe it's Beaver Creek Dairy. And so now that we're kind of coming out of this fog, we're in the process of trying to work that. We're looking at putting together the bid pack for that. And later this month, we are having an additional sampling event later this March. We did one last year on our monitoring wells. So we are monitoring our wells, and so we're gonna have another one here this March. We're gonna probably kick it up to quarterly and look at it that way, and then see what that develops. And then finally, actually not finally, the street crew's been going around patching over on Howell, trying to get rid of some of those big wide cracks that they've got in the roadway there. I've heard it's been pretty successful. It feels smooth enough driving down it, as well as catching up with any potholes that have developed over the winter time. And then also, we have a preliminary bid packet for our 2022 road work. However, with the price of oil and asphalt and everything else right now, it's going to be challenging. And so with that, I'll entertain any questions.
I have a few.
Sure.
So with your last update on as far as oil prices and things like that, and I know that it's probably not the best season, when do you plan on starting if things align financially?
That would be up to the contractors. We have to fit into their schedule.
Okay. And then do we have an update on the striping on Mill?
That's, part of it's going to be, well, we got to get the weather up.
Okay.
The weather has to be warmer. We tried to put some
figured.
crosswalk painting in over and around the Brush secondary campus, and you saw how long that lasts, because it didn't.
That was my next question.
Because
you
the
can't
temperatures
see
weren't
'em.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my only question. I just wanted to know when, maybe, so I could keep it on my radar.
When the weather permits.
Yep.
Yep.
Makes sense.
I'm sorry, that sounds like an excuse.
It is not an excuse. Anybody who knows anything about chemistry knows that is not an excuse.
Okay. It's just the way it does, it won't adhere. So,
Right?
okay. Any other
Okay.
comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Joanne Gosling.
I have nothing this evening.
You didn't want to take Rick's 2 minutes?
No, it took too long. Dale was like, no.
Loranda Packard, City Clerk.
Just a couple things. I reached out to you last week about some council training dates with SERSA. So far, the feedback I've gotten is that April 12th is about the only date that a few can make it. So those who haven't answered, I guess just let me know if April 12th will work for you. And if not, we can look at one of those other dates. And then also on the CML conference, I've got this time tonight, it's in blue, and I'm gonna try and keep it in blue, maybe a little bit easier to keep track of. And then when I hand them out, I'll update them. So far, there's only one event that is full. So, but if you want to plan the ticketed events, you'll wanna get these in right away, so that we can make sure we've got you registered. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dan Cobb, our city attorney. Have anything?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to apologize for not being there in person tonight. I don't have anything, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Nope, I think we're all caught up. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Monty Torres, city administrator.
Okay, a few items. One is, the last few years, last 2 or 3 years, we've been having discussions with Ducks Unlimited. The discussion is about doing a small wetlands project on one of our city farms. And the farm that we're working on with Ducks Unlimited, it's a farm where the ground is very alkali, and so it hasn't been really producing well for quite a few years. And what they're proposing to do is putting in a small wetlands area to help try and clean water, and a couple different purposes. One for them, if they can demonstrate that this wetland area does clean up the water out there, the two items or pollutants that they're looking at is E. coli and selenium. But if they can show that it reduces that, it may help get the Beaver Creek off of an impaired waterway list, which would be a good thing for the area, because if it stays on that list, at some point in time, they may put in some TMDLs, some total maximum daily limits, and that could affect some of the farming community, some of our farms. So it may help out there, and also if it shows to help clean up the water, it may be, and Ducks Unlimited is going to look into this, it may help with if our wastewater treatment plant ever has a discharge violation, and they may give us credit for this by helping clean up water in another place. They give us credit for a potential violation. We don't want any violations, but it may help there. We're still researching that. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, we have a lease agreement with them out at the Brush Agri Park, and that is expiring, and so they're asking for an extension on that. And so that'll be coming in the next meeting or two. And part of that discussion is we have been working with CPW, and we're proposing for them to build a stick-built facility somewhere in Brush. And the mayor and I and Councilor Spradlin, we've met once on that, just talking about how we could support that initiative. We have a letter that we need to get out to the state, kind of a letter of intent. And I just got the address of where to send that to on Friday. So this week we hope to get a letter out. It's not as pressing as what we thought it was. They're still looking at 2 to 3 years down the line, they explained. But the sooner the better. Just to explain, we have 2 good locations in the Brush area that we'd like to work with them on. Next item is at your seats, there was a letter, or not a letter, but a form that said Skill Bridge on it. Everyone got one of those? This is kind of a unique program. It's a program where the military, when someone is about to retire, when they're 6 months out, they have the ability to find a career path where the military will continue paying for the soldiers all their pay and allowance and benefits, but then would come work for someone. So we have one potential, he's not a soldier, but he's a seaman, and coming out of the Navy here pretty quick, and he would like to come work for the city of Brush for a few months, and he hopes to maybe get a job here permanently. And so this right here is a great program. We've also advocated, military police might be another one. If there's a military police getting out of the service, come here your last 6 months, gives chief a great 6 months to evaluate, see if they're gonna be a good fit long-term. So it's one of our recruiting efforts for a few different positions, and Kim Dykes is doing a great program. It took her 6 months to get this off the ground. So finally we got accepted, and there's a website you can go to. When you go to that website, it'll show you different places around the United States where an employer says, we will take one of your soldiers. And so hopefully soon we'll be on that website as well. That's all I have.
I have a question for you about this. So is this an active duty personnel or is this a reservist?
Active duty.
Okay, and then are they attempting to learn a new skill as they transition out, or is this rate specific? So they're coming out of the rate that's similar?
So what we had to do was give them a list of potential jobs that we would have. So we gave them the majority of jobs that we have because we can kind of plug and play almost any position in the military. If you're, especially as rocket launchers, probably not. But if it's a truck driver, if it's a heavy equipment operator, military police, someone in public works in the military, those are the best fits. But
so they likely will have relevant skills, and then they'll also gain that training while they're with us.
Correct.
Okay. My only question.
Where are we at on the fire training facility?
Oh, you beat me to it.
Fire training facility just had a discussion with Tad Anderson during the finance committee meeting, and he's proposing moving the site from the Brush Agri Park to next to the fire hall. And Rick and David and Patrick are pretty much done reviewing, are we able to put it there by our code? And then still the council has to decide, do you want the fire training center next to the fire hall, or is it better where we have it planned at the agri park? But I think it's gonna, if it's at the fire training center, or at the fire hall here in town, I believe it needs a variance and a floodplain permit, elevation permit. And so Tad just called me this afternoon on that, and later this week we plan to meet and go into further details. And now the date's moved back to June, so we're not in a time crunch. Yeah, they had moved it up from June to April, and now they've moved it back to June is what they think they can deliver it. So we got a little more time to go through those decision-making processes and decide.
Did Chad give any reasoning for why he wants to move it over there?
I think most of it is cost, because there is some site development cost to go out at the agro park. This one, it'll be less expensive, but you're on a smaller parcel, and you are bringing burning inside of town as well. And it'll look nice and bright and red and everything to begin with, but over time it'll rust some, and then you got some more maintenance you probably have to do to keep it up. But it's kind of changed a little bit where there's gonna be a lot of use for it, but now it's sounding like there's less.
Less
Less
fire
time.
use, but they'll use it for training as long as it's not super hot, because it will get hot.
We're not committing to use it.
Very good.
As long as we have movement on it, because this has been going on for a while, you know, we'd like to get it done. It was a priority last year, and I feel like it somehow got put on the back burner.
Yeah, never on the back burner. We went for the grant, but then the rule board wouldn't support the grant. So then we lost the grant, so the price went up on the structure. And then, we've been ready to move forward, but now the change is they want to go to different locations. So we were planning and did engineering, everything's ready for that site, or, yeah, that site. And then make sure I'm going the right direction. The site where we proposed it, but then this all came up in the last 30 days, maybe?
I was gonna say that if I can add, the planning side is huge, and I don't think that they were really thinking through how much this is gonna take. And so when it comes to even looking at the code, it took us a long time, because it was like roadblock after roadblock until we can figure out. I mean, it's discretionary, you gotta really think through it. And second is taking time to review it with other cities and how they did theirs. And it's like a puzzle. And so you can't just throw it together, it's not gonna work. So we have vetted it really hard, and it should have been done last year in order to be ready for this year. And so we scrambled to kind of get it together, and we've been working on it for months. So it's thoroughly vetted. We feel like it's gonna be a good project. We just 2 hurdles of getting the variance, and that's just to make sure that we're not giving them special treatment on something that is not allowed in our city code. So we're doing for them what we would do with anyone else too, is just do the proper channels.
That's awesome. I just want to make sure we're not blowing them off.
Yep.
Because, you know, we have a hard time with our firefighters as is, so.
Yeah. We've been waiting to build the pad for it, but now the changes come, so we gotta.
You had your chance.
And Joanne has 2 minutes of.
I have a second. The other thing I wanted to add to Larry's comment was, we've actually had it ordered for several months. We've just pretty much been waiting on the building, and then and it was supposed to not be here until June, and then all of a sudden it was April 1, and now it's back to June, so. But yeah, it's not died, it's been there, it just takes a while to do some of that stuff, unfortunately.
We just haven't heard anything about it really, so I'll make sure we haven't forgot about it.
Now, we do have, if you guys remember, the fire department wanted a pickup truck and a trailer. You guys remember that discussion? And they have come back with a new memo requesting that to be reconsidered. And so, I didn't tell them no, I said just write up a memo and also get something in writing that they did approach the rural fire board if they're gonna participate. And my understanding is rural fire board is not gonna participate, but I wanted that added to the memo, or an additional memo explaining that before it comes back to council.
But didn't they want it for like hauling chairs and tables and stuff? That the city has the equipment they could borrow?
His
Let it-
original
That was
memo
part of it,
was
yeah.
that, yes.
Let him
but-
get his memo out.
Yeah,
There's more to it.
yeah, and
Just in talking to him.
that's what his new memo is about, is,
Explaining better.
yeah. And he sees that he probably did a better job at that first memo, so it makes more sense now, his new memo does make more sense.
Okay, just since we're on the topic of the fire department, perhaps a discussion with the rural fire board, being as they're about to redo their contract with Excel, kind of see how that's gonna fall out for our firefighters, and see if we can't have one of those great discussions that we had on that nice round table, and make sure we're all on the same page and see what's gonna be the best, since I don't think a fire protection district is something that we really can see right now, but I think that's something we might wanna consider at some point. Just while we're on the topic, we don't have to talk about it now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know a lot more, but it's really their negotiations. I didn't wanna interfere, so. That's
No,
why-
of course not,
so
but
we
I
just have to
just,
see how they
I
do.
would like to make sure that we don't forget about it and that we get to talk about it at some point too, and make sure that we're doing the best thing, you know, for these firefighters.
And I've asked a few times for, in case that negotiation doesn't go good, I've asked a few times for the fire department, send the city council a letter saying they would support a ballot question. And we, they said that the fire chief said that they are agreeable to that. And I said, I'd like to have it in writing for council versus just a hearsay.
Just if we are gonna do the research on that topic, I would like to look into a fire protection district before we go asking for more money on a ballot measure.
That's a ballot for the rural, right?
It would just be
For
for the
the-
rural.
yeah, for the rural.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but they have to do the actual negotiating for themselves for
Yep.
the Excel contract. We can't really do that for them.
I have one question for staff, but I don't know who to direct it to. Just in, for future, if someone could give us an update on the dog park, I've been hearing about it from citizens.
Oh, okay, I'll ask.
As the weather starts to get nicer.
I'll ask Lance. You don't know, you're not tracking the dog park. I know that they've got everything just about ready, and it could be build it in the spring or something, but let me find out.
Just an update, doesn't have to
Is
be
it
now.
where the one is now, or
See,
It's
I
gonna be in
don't,
the same spot.
in Spawn, just
And-
updating?
constituents just wanna know, they wanna know what's going on with it, if it's gonna be a little bit nicer than it currently is, if they're gonna be able to take their dogs.
Yep,
Very good.
I know. I was gonna mention one thing. Patrick Jabauer.
Yeah.
I saw that you're here. Patrick is one of the landowners down south. And Patrick, that hearing that we're talking about with the ordinance for the watershed, the council, they met 30 minutes ago. Before you got here, they had voted on it, and they turned down that ordinance, but they're gonna revisit it as soon as we make some changes to it.
A lot of changes.
Yeah, so just be aware they had made that decision earlier.
Thank you for coming though, I appreciate it.
Well, it's pretty restricting. I ask one thing, simple, quick thing. Can I push dirt around my tank, stock tank?
Do you push dirt around your tank right now?
Yeah.
Yes, you may.
I mean, after, if you pull this, if you did that, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do the math on it. This is how restricted it is. You got a 30-foot stock tank. You do the math on it in the pie, you're gonna end up with, go all the way around that 30-foot tank, you're gonna end up with 14, if I push 2 foot up to the tank and a foot on the outside, that blew out because the sand blew away. To push up 2 foot to the tank, a foot to the outside, that's 18 inches average. Do the math around a 30-foot tank, that's 52.30, that's 1,413 cubic feet. That's 52.33 yards. I'm in violation. Whoever's putting this stuff together doesn't get it. I've traveled miles of roads so I can get in on the place we have by the Pruitt, because it's so sandy, traveled miles of roads so we can get trucks in and haul hay. I can't put in a quarter-mile road there. Because if I gravel a road, a 2-track, it's gonna be considered a road. Way too restricted.
So Patrick, are there any other items on there? Because we are taking notes on these different
Oh,
issues.
yeah. What's that yellow line all around the whole outside of it start out with?
The
For
yellow
the
one.
map.
Are you talking
That's
of,
the state one, isn't that the state boundary?
where did the map go? It was just
It's
here.
the same.
The map, oh, is it right here?
It's the
Yeah.
state boundary, right?
And Patrick, it might be better, unless the council wants to go through all this, we can meet with you and go over all of your issues.
Well, I
so
don't
we
have
can-
time. I gathered cows. I don't have time to run in and run out. I never even got it certified. You've got a map with landowners that are on it. Every single landowner that's on it. Well, how hard was it to get a certified letter to me at the very beginning?
Right,
I
so,
believe with Dan on the line, I would caution council to speaking outside of the public hearing about this, so Dan could probably speak to that, but I don't think we should talk about this right now. I mean, we can take his concerns, absolutely, but I don't think we as a council should say anything.
right. So I'll let Dan answer that.
Well, it said you're gonna have your meeting on the 14th.
We did, we had it at 6.
Well,
What was your answer?
But
huh?
Patrick could not.
Patrick Bauer. I own the property by the Pruitt. I'm on the east, south, and east side of this. And if I can't push dirt around my stock tank, think how many Steve Cecil's got. 20, 30?
But that should fall under activities that
Yeah,
require.
50
farming.
yards. 50 yards. It's in your deal.
But the-
50
the-
yards.
but
You
the-
can't move 50 yards.
But the ranching and farming, agricultural activities, that's all
But it
grandfathered in.
doesn't say that.
It does say
It says 50 yards. If you move 50 yards or make more than a quarter mile road.
If you'll
There's
look at,
got a lot of things in there that ain't gonna work. And it's already protected. The state's out there. You're not kidding me. I know what's going on. I got more paperwork from the town of Castle Rock, everybody else. I know what you're trying to do is get an ordinance in there before they put something in there. I don't want them to put anything in there either. Don't get me wrong. I don't want them in there.
Patrick, what's
So-
your phone number?
970-380-1355.
071.
Because,
yep, we'll make sure you get the information that you need.
because
But yeah, our
I
hearing
don't
is
want them in there,
closed.
I don't want them dumping water in there. I'm dealing with it. You think I'm not dealing with it by the Pruitt? We got pipelines, everything. I got more water stuff than I can deal with.
So your major concern is the sub or the surface type activities, correct?
I don't wanna be restricted at all.
Yeah.
I bought the sun gun, that's another thing, that's another point. You look at that map, there is this change hands, 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 this change hands. The only thing it has is the Huey still owns all of that. Steve Cecil's was for sale. How many years have you had those wells? Have we ever had a problem?
We've had some concerns, but they didn't lead to the contamination, but they were close.
Well, the only way I see, if you wanna take everybody's property rights inside of this map and give it to you, the city of Brush, you should have been buying that up.
So we'll have staff reach out to you and answer your
And I
concerns.
still don't see how, all of a sudden, this corner is not gonna be a problem. But we go way out further this way. Who made that map? Who decided that that was where?
That was the engineers
Yeah, we
that
could
put the
adjourn
maps
meeting.
together.
All right, we're gonna move on, and we will be talking about this at our next meeting also. If you'll have an appointment with, talk to staff about it. Okay. All right, mayor and council reports.
I got nothing.
I had a citizen come to me and, with concerns about the skate park and Hospital Road. And I don't know, but he's not concerned about the skate park. He thinks it's a great thing for the kids. He said, but the kids are leaving it and like walking down the middle of Hospital Road, which you can't really control where kids go. But he said it's really scary. He watches it, and at night, trucks will go tearing through that, intersection, and the kids are in the middle of the road. He thought maybe, flashing stop signs or something to alert people that there's kids around there that, but I don't know if there's something we can do, but if we can.
As a parent of a skateboarder, he requested that there's lights at the skate park. There's lights at the basketball park. There's lights for everything else, but there's no lights for the skateboarders. And it's not just skateboarders that are there. You got moms with their kids on skates, rollerblades. There's even small BMX bikes. There's all ages at that park.
So, yeah, some lights there would be nice, and maybe more on Hospital Road, I don't know. I mean, money's no object, so. Just put some lights in. But that was all I had. Anybody else? Then I will adjourn this meeting and we'll move into work session.